Hi, I'm Miguel Delaney, Chief Football Writer at The Independent. We've now finished the group stage and entered the last 16 of the World Cup where it gets serious. So you've got a lot of questions from that. Let's see what you've asked. So the first question is from ISO, who asks, is this the best group stage ever? Well, actually, there is a stat for that because it is the only group stage other than 2002 where every single game has had something on the line. So there's been no match where a team has qualified or two teams have qualified or one has been knocked out. Everything has had an incentive for one of the teams involved. And I think that has created absolutely chaotic football. To be honest, I mean, as a journalist, I've never experienced that. It was at England-Wales, which actually ended up being the most sedate. Then I was at Argentina-Poland, which is already frenetic. And then I was at the utter chaos of Japan-Spain, with all of this, of course, influenced by what was going on elsewhere. So I think you're probably right. Now, of course, all of this has to be put in the context of Qatar as a host and all the controversies and issues around this World Cup. But the football is separate from the host in that sense. And from that perspective, it's been incredible, I have to say. I've never seen drama like it. So Ali asks, who's impressed you the most this World Cup and why is it Australia? Australia are one of only 3 teams this World Cup that do not have any players in the 5 major European leagues. They're the only one of those to have got through to the last 16. So from that perspective, actually, you could say that Australia are the biggest overachievers this World Cup. So in terms of pure performance relative to quality, Australia maybe are the most impressive. So maybe it's not that outlandish actually a statement. I suppose if you mean impressive in terms of who's actually going to win it, it's Brazil. I know they lost their last game to Cameroon in the group, but they were already through, weren't playing at 100%. And when it's mattered, I think they're so difficult to get at, but they've got so many weapons going forward. And yeah, a really impressive team. So Bendrix asks, after the Wales game, if Rashford and Foden are certain starters. Both must start against Senegal. I see where you're coming from. They're obviously superb. I mean, Southgate gets a lot of criticism, not least from the press. I've questioned some of his decisions. But one of the things I think he's good at is actually picking the right player and right attacker for the situation. And England have so many weapons that I think they can afford to go on issues other than form. It's about the quality of a player in a particular situation. So I actually think this is a game where it actually might be better to introduce Rashford as a sub. And this has become a bit of a theme with Southgate, actually, where he doesn't really see it as starting 11 as a starting 11, and that's the kind of preferred team. He sees his subs as, I think the rugby term is, as a finisher, players that can come on and change games. And it's why Rashford and Foden are particularly potent from that perspective, as is Jack Grealish. I do think he might start Rashford. I don't think he'll start both, though. But as regards their shirts to lose, I wouldn't go that strong, I have to say. I think this is one area where Southgate has it right, and rotation is actually a virtue for England. Pedri Fanatic says, Portugal are going to win the World Cup. Just give them the trophy already. Who's going to stop that team? I have to say, I disagree with that. Portugal have an awful lot of talent, so I can see where you're coming from. But there's a lot of questions over the manager, he was in charge when they won Euro 2016. It's 6 years after that now, and there's been a lot of criticism in Portugal about how stale it has got. Then they've got the Ronaldo issue, obviously one of the best players of all time, but he's not performing like that right now. And there is a growing argument that he kind of curtails this team because he needs everything built around them. But it mightn't even get that far, because I think Switzerland are about as awkward a last 16 opponent as you could have, and I actually fancy the Swiss to beat them. So who's going to stop that team? I actually think it'll be Switzerland. João asks, what would this Brazil team be without Vinicius Jr. and Casemiro? It's interesting, isn't it? 4 years ago, it would have been a crisis for Brazil if Neymar had been injured. Now, it's obviously not what they want, but it's something they can get on with. And there is a growing argument, I think, that Vinicius could be a bigger star than Neymar by the time this tournament is over. I actually think he's a more effective player as it is. He's electric. The way he just tears down that flank, he's almost unstoppable. He's added real goals that we've seen in the Champions League. This is a player who, of course, he's a Champions League final winner. He got the winning goal against Liverpool. And Casemiro, actually, I mean, for all the talk that he might have been going to Manchester United and was towards the end of his career or spent as a player, well, I think he's probably been the midfielder of the tournament so far, bar maybe the two Spanish kids, and kids is what they are, in Gavi and Pedri. But Casemiro has been so good in midfield. In fact, almost a perfect midfield would be Casemiro behind Gavi and Pedri, as we've seen him with Real Madrid, behind Cruz and Modric. But with Brazil, He's almost the pivot around which the whole team revolves. Nana asks if this is turning out to be Gakpo's tournament. Well, it's certainly Gakpo's Dutch team, because I think he is so essential to them. The Dutch, obviously, they're quite a backloaded team, most of their talent in defence, and he gives them a really necessary outlet, as well as, of course, having immense talent. This is why clubs like Manchester United want him. As to whether it'll be his tournament, that's kind of dependent on how far Holland can go. And given they're so dependent on him, this isn't a slight on Gakpo, because he's kind of carrying them in attack. It's more that he doesn't have the support, and I think the Dutch will be a little bit short, which will mean it won't be Gakpo's tournament in that way. But certainly he's marked himself out as one of the talents of the World Cup. Feng asks, how the heck have Belgium not been able to capitalise on the talent they've had? I think 2016 was definitely a waste. They could have won that. But unfortunately for them at the time, they had Mark Wilmots as manager, who just, it's been proven since, didn't know how to make the best out of the team. I'll have a little bit of sympathy for Roberto Martinez, the manager in 2018, Euro 2020, and now this World Cup. I mean, in 2018, they're actually one of the teams of the tournament. They did a number on Brazil in the quarterfinal, and they only really went out to a French team who won it and had to really lock down. That's the thing about this Belgium. They were superb in 2020 as well, but don't forget, De Bruyne went into that injured after he had that cheekbone issue in the Champions League final, didn't look fully fit. And yet they're one of the best teams that tournament, only lost to the champions there as well. I mean, that's not a bad legacy in that sense, to go out to the two teams that won the last two competitions, especially for a nation the size of Belgium, even allowing for that talent. So, I mean, they might look back, they should have won a trophy. Their country has never won an international tournament before. But I do think they got almost as far as they could, given the context. So thank you for all your questions. I'm actually off to stadium now for Argentina-Australia. Keep up to date with all the news from Qatar 2022 with Independent Sport, and watch more on Independent TV. We'll see you again on You Ask the Questions.